So we're several weeks into the Linux class, and I know you're on a roll. I know you've been following the videos, and while I've been working through my demonstrations, is that you've had your virtual machine open and you're following along with my commands, right? That's the way to learn this class. You open up your video in your guest operating system, which I guess is going to be Windows, but it could be anything. And then you have your virtual machine open, that is your Linux box. And while I'm typing commands, is that you're following along with what I'm doing. And so you're replicating the exact commands and should be getting the same exact results that I am. That's the way to learn. So we'll continue to do this today and go over quite a few commands that you'll find very useful. So let's get started. So let's look at something called the file command. What the file command does is it determines a file's actual type. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Windows, you probably know that the way you determine a file's type is by looking at the extension. So you know that a .text file is a text file, or a .doc file is a Word file, or that a PDF file is an Adobe PDF or portable document format file. Well, that's not how applications work. In actuality, the three-letter extension that you see in Windows and DOS is just a human convention. That does not exactly determine the file's actual type. In reality, what an application does is it reads the first few bytes, which is called the header information in the file, to identify a file signature. Have you ever tried to open a file in any application in Word and it says wrong file type or something of that nature? That is, it gives you an error. That's because you're trying to open a type of file that your application doesn't understand. Well, it works in a similar fashion in any operating system, regardless if it's Windows or Linux or Mac OS X or whatever, is that the file type that's determined by the header information must match what the application understands. It's kind of like giving me a text in Italian and expecting me to read it knowing that my header information says that I'm an English speaker. And that's what I understand. So let's look at some examples here. You see some quick examples right here. Notice this is the file command. But we'll whip on over to, so I've got some files in here. Let's type ls-al. And we see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files in here. So let's run the file command. We'll type B and hit tab for blackbox.txt and see what it says. It says it's a non-ISO extended ASCII English text with carriage return line terminators. So what we're keying in here is this is ASCII. It's ASCII text. So how do we read ASCII text? We can type less, then B in the tab. Auto-completes black box. Oh, what do we see? It looks like text, right? So in this case, the extension .text matched the actual file type. Let's go down to this third file in here, jjg.doc, and let's type file j, and that's the only one that starts with a J, so we can hit tab.doc. Oh, wait a second. This says, the file return says it's a JPEG file, which is a graphics file. But notice the extension, a .doc. Notice that those are mismatched. Well, let's try to open this file, because it says it's a .doc in the Linux version of Office, which is called LibreOffice. Go to Office and LibreOffice Writer. See if it opens it. Because it says it's a .doc, correct? So LibreOffice should, It didn't even give an error. It just wouldn't open it. Oh, let me try that one more time with open. Let's go back here to jj.doc. Oh, wow. What's it talking about here? It's not opening it. It's just saying it's ASCII filter options. We'll click OK. Oh, well, that's not what we expected, right? There is some ASCII text in here, but that's supposed to be a Office file, Word file. Well, guess what? It's not. What kind of file is it? It's a JPEG file. So we determine the actual file type by running the file command on each of these. Let's just run file on all of these. Star. Remember, that's the wildcard for everything underneath here, underneath the directory. Blackbox.txt is ASCII. Ginny James is a JPEG file. It also has a JPEG extension. This doc file here says it's a JPEG too. Kissme.txt. Oh, wow, what is that? It's an executable. Microsoft Windows Intel 3086 executable. Now, I want you to think about this. How do hackers try to infiltrate your system? Well, a lot of times they use something called social engineering. And all that means is that they're trying to pretend to be something that they're not in order to extract information from you. So essentially, they're trying to con you. And the way this occurs a lot is that these hackers will send you an email with either a link or an included file at the end that may say something that they think would be either attractive for you to click on or make you curious. For example, they could say how to make $1 million .txt, or how to see see through people's clothing. You know, something that would attract certain viewers to want to click on that. That's social engineering. Well, here in this case, this says kissme.txt, and they may, let's say they're sending it to one of young male students, and they have a picture of a girl, and it says, oh, kissme.txt at the bottom. You click on that, and if you're in Windows, what happens? This executable will execute, and it may not show you anything on the screen, but what it could do, if you're not careful, is install something on your computer that you don't want to be on there. So that's a little about social engineering, but more importantly, it shows you how to determine a file's real type is by using the file command. And as you see, finally, the PDF document right here that says PDF, so that's correct. So we can open this with any PDF viewer, right? But these two, we can't open that with a text viewer, and we could try. In fact, I'm not going to try to open it. Well, no, I'm going to go ahead and open this with a text viewer. Let's try to open this with kissme.txt. And actually, what I'm going to do is, and I don't think I've shown you this before, this is a hex viewer. So this allows you to view text files or binary files, but it's going to show you the contents of this file in whatever its actual format is. And you'll see that kissme.txt is not a love letter. So type K and hit tab, and we're going to pipe this to less because that might be a big file, right? So now we can page through the file. So remember, XXD is a hex viewer. Well, it's got some text in it. This says this program cannot be run in DOS. What do you mean program cannot be run in DOS? I thought it was a text file. This MZ indicator up here has been around forever, and that means it's a binary file for Windows. And if we hit the J key, remember the J key is that we can tab along, we can scroll along rather down here. That's not a text file. That's a binary file. It's an executable that runs under Windows. And we saw that through the file command. Okay, that's enough for file. So what if you have, let's say, moving on to the next command, let's say you have a big file. Let's see which of these are big files in here. We don't want to look at kissme.txt. We want to look at a large text file. Here's blackbox.txt. It's a fairly large file, 44460 characters. And that's in bytes, but we're assuming because that's a text file that it's going to be 8 bits per byte, and therefore that will be that many characters in the file. And let's say we just wanted to look at the first few lines of the file. Well, we could do it this way. We could type less black box, right? and then we can look at the first 25 lines. There's another way to do that, is to type something called head. Head allows you to look at the first few lines of a file. So we type head, space, and then B and tab, hit enter, and it shows us the first 10 lines, of the file. And that's it. Now, we can't scroll through it with head, but we do see the first few lines. Let's say we wanted to look at the first 25 lines. We could do, let's see how we would do that. Man, head, dump up the manual page, and we can scroll down, hitting the J key. Here it says -N or -L lines, print the first K lines of the first 10 with the leading this. So in other words, what this is saying is this allows you to indicate how many lines you want to see. Let's type Q to get out. Let's type head and 25. Let's look at blackbox.txt, and it gives us the first 25 lines of the file. Now, it would be great if there was a similar command that lets you look at the very end of the file. What might that be? Let's clear the screen with clear. Tail, blackbox.txt. That is the last 10 lines of the file. So if we had head with -N25, why can't we do tail -N25, blackbox.txt, and then their last 25 lines of the file? Now you may ask yourself, well, why do we need that when we have less? And I will show you later on, in fact I might do it now, there's some log files that are continually written to. And so one of the things you can do, and what log files do, are system files that will be written out so you can go back and look and see what activities have been occurring on your computer, like who's been logging in, if there have been any errors, and so on. And so if you type n-tail let's say F, what F does is it forces the file to stay open, it just doesn't close it. And then I think I'm going to have to go back. -A to go back to the start, type sudo, type my password. There's a log file. And so the last 10 messages are these that have been written out here. Now I don't know if any others, there we go. Notice that was updated. Is that this is actually scrolling along as events are occurring. So as a systems administrator, you could have this open and you could pop it up in one section of your screen, and you could be noting the system events that are occurring as you're typing away, as you're doing your other system administrator job. So that's a good use for tail. Let's type Control-C to get out of there. And notice you should do that on your own and just run tail on your syslog file and watch as your screen updates. Okay, so now let's say we want to know what the date is. We type date, and we see that's not the current date, is it? That's not the current date, June 4th. It is actually June 11th. And so we need to update the date and time. That just shows you what it's currently set to. Now, as it turns out, there is a protocol called NTP. You don't need to type this. I'll just type it so you can read it. NTP for Network Time Protocol. And what this does is it allows for your computer or other devices to connect to a larger computer that are set to atomic clocks to try to synchronize with it to keep your system up to date. And so that's the network time protocol. And there is a command called ntpdate that allows you to synchronize with one of these servers. And so you have to list the server that you want to connect to, and we can find out the servers just by, I'm going to show you how to do this on your own. And let's type in ntp notice server right here. Let's see if we can find some. Okay, here's pool.ntp.org. Let's go there. And this shows you all the active servers. Africa has 14, Asia 188, Europe 1971, North America 789. Let's go there. We're living there. So here's United States, and this lists 4 different servers right here. Let's use this first one, 0.us.pool.ntp.org. Let's see if I can copy that. Copy. Click over here. Oh, mouse is very sensitive. Paste. It copied. Let's hit enter. Let's wait a second. Now there should be some negotiating going on between your computer and that server. And we're up to date. So the new date is, and that's the correct one, 11th of June at 10:24 a.m. And you see this was an offset because there's different time zones, so the offset will be different. Notice this is the IP address of the server. Later on, we'll see how we can run these commands automatically in the background. So let's say every hour or every day that you can run that without ever having to do that manually. Okay, let's do one final command today, and that's called sort. And sort allows you to sort a file alphabetically. So first we need to create a file. So let's go into Nano, and we'll create a file called sort.txt. And let's do this out of sequence. And let's make some of the characters so they're duplicated. Here we go. And let's put in some capital letters too, and we'll see how this sorts. Let's also put in some numbers. Oops. Here we go. Okay, so we've got, let's put in space too. Let's keep that space in there. So let's say, why would you ever want to use sort? Okay, so you've got a large text file that contains names in it, and you want it sorted for some reason. Or let's say you could have a text file that contains IP addresses. Well, you may want to sort those. You have 10,000 lines of names or IP addresses. You want to sort them. You can run this through sort, and you can see what the sorted file looks like. And so we're going to save this with Control-O, save it as sort, and now we can get out with Control-X. And so here's what the unsorted text looks like. Run tail on that. Sort, that shows you the end. Head shows you the first how many lines? 10, right? Okay, let's sort this. Sort.txt. That ran off the screen, didn't it? Well, I didn't want that. Let's arrow up. Let's pipe that to less. There we go. So how does sort work? Well, first it put the space, and then it put the numbers, and then it started alphabetically. And so notice that it put the smaller case characters first, lowercase, and then the uppercase characters, but it did so alphabetically. You know what? That's no good. I've got a sorted file. I've got 10,000 IP addresses or names. You know, let's go back to sort, because it didn't save the file. It did not save the file. So how do I get that sorted list into a file? Ah, very good question, Grasshopper. The way we do this is through something called a redirection operator. Let me type that out. Redirection. Spell it right first. My hands are going faster than my brain is this morning. Redirection operator. And there's a couple of them. We'll just show you one for today. And so the redirection operator we use to take this command, arrow up, sort.txt, and send it to another file is the greater than sign. Sort.txt greater than my new sorted text. So the first command is the sort command, right? And that's going to sort the text. Then there's the greater than operator that says take what's ever here and put it in my new file, my new sorted text. So that should work, and we should have a new file that shows my new sorted text, the new sorted file. Now that was really easy, wasn't it? Very, very simple. Actually, I'm going to show you one more command. And the reason I'm going to show you this is because you're probably going to make a mistake the first time you use this, or the first 10 times, and you're going to mess up and you're going to scream. Okay, so first what we want to do is I want to copy my new sorted text to my new copy sorted text. And just to show you that that copy is the same, my new copy sorted text, that's the same as the other file. So here's what happens, is that what you might actually do is, I'll tell you what, first let me do this. Let me make one more file. And trust me, this will be worth it, because if you see me screw up on the screen, you'll say, oh, I never want to do that again. That's okay, you'll still screw up. But this is a common error. So let's call this my mistake.txt. We'll call this hello world. No world. Yes, world. We're just typing some text just so I can show you a common mistake. And in fact, go ahead and make this mistake. Do what I'm doing here. You should be doing that anyway. We'll make a mistake. And so, my mistake, there it is. So I want to sort that file. And so we're going to say sort my mistake, and we're going to send that out to my new sorted text. Oh no, I think I made a mistake, because I had sorted this file here, and I'll put it here. And now I sorted this file, but I didn't want. Is this going to add it to the end? I mean, what's going to happen? Let's go back in and look at my new sorted text. My new sorted text. Oh no, what happened? What happened? Where's that original text that I had? Where's that original text of the list of numbers in smaller and uppercase characters? It's gone. It was overwritten. This right here means it's going to overwrite whatever is in this file. So the previous contents of that file is gone. Now, as it just so happens, I saved a copy of it up here, remember? So we still have that copy if we need it. However, the original contents in this file has been overwritten by my mistake, and clearly it was a mistake. Okay, let's clear the screen with clear. I'm going to create one more file called add this stuff. Guess what I'm going to call it? I'm going to call it .doc. Is it really a Word file? No, doesn't matter. It's a text file. Okay, so I'm going to create some just create some stuff in here. Okay, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to exit. Let's look at the contents of this. Okay, that looks right. Now what I want to do is, let's see, what was the name of that file? Less my new copy. That was the original file right here, right? That was the copy of it. And I saved that for a reason. What I want to do is, I want to sort, add this stuff, and I want to stick it at the end of that my new copies sorted.txt file. How do we do this? If we use that, it's going to overwrite it. But if we do this, it's going to append it. It's going to add it to the end. Let's try that out. My new copies sorted text. So there's two things going on here. You're going to sort, add this stuff, and you're going to append that to the contents of my new copy sorted.txt. And so let's see how that works. Let's hit enter. Let's go back and look at my new copy sorted.txt. And let's scroll down. Voila. There it is. There it is. It's been appended to the end. Okay, so let's see how many files in here now are text files. We've got add this stuff.doc. I'm going to have to write this down. Add this stuff and my mistake and my new copy and sort. Okay, so you've got 5 text files in here. Okay, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to have all those text files. Let's say 100 people send you their name and their email address. Just tell them, send me your name and your email address. And so you've got 100 different text files with people's name in them, and you want to stick it in one file. How do you do that? Well, I'll tell you the easy way to do that. Remember the cat command? Remember that cat just simply concatenates or displays the contents of a file to the screen. Remember that? Wasn't there a file in here called my mistake? Cat my mistake. Here we go. So what if we cat these? Cat add this stuff. My mistake. My new sorted text. My new copy sorted text. And sort.txt. Now let's use the append operator. All the files together. Spell that right. T-O-G-E. All the files together. So what do you think this will do? So add this. So we're catting those 5 files, and we're saying append that to this new file we've created. All the files together. Hit enter. Let's see what happened. First, let's look at the file size. Whoops, LS-. AL, and we'll pipe that to less. And we'll see that of all the text files that we have in here, is that all the files together will be the size of all of those 5 files put together. In other words, it will be the largest file. Let's go take a look at it. Less, all files together. There we are. There are all 5 files together. What would have been an easier way to do that? Let's say you've got like I said, 100, 1,000, 10,000 different text files, and they've got the name and email address of everybody in it. And to make it easier on yourself, what can you tell them? What can you tell them? You could tell them, hey, send me your information and name it your first name dot text. Okay, your first name dot text. And so you've got 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 files named something dot text. Now what can you do? Well, let's see how many text files we have in here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5 text files. You could do this: cat star.text. Append these bad boys to emails.text. And so you're using the cat command. You're using this wildcard that says do this for any file that ends in text and append it to a new file called emails.text. Let's hit enter. Let's go back and look at emails.text. And of course these aren't emails, but you get the drift. And there they are. There they are. Okay, that ends this lecture. So we covered the file command, the tail, and head commands, sort, date, ntpdate, and we looked at the two redirection operators, the greater than and the double greater than sign. So make sure you practice these, follow along with my examples, and do some of your own examples, and you'll have no trouble with these commands.